Hi everyone, tonight we're stepping into the freezing bones of history, into a world where winter didn't just chill you, it hunted you. No central heating, no hot cocoa, and definitely no fleece pajamas. Just the relentless cold seeping through walls, clothes, and souls. You might survive a night, but you also might not. And once you're in, well, you might not get back out. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I'm doing here. And hey, leave a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I always love seeing the Global Bedtime Club checking in. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a small fan for that soft background hum, and let's begin tonight's journey together. The wind outside howls like a ghost with unpaid rent. It lashes against the thin wooden hut as if trying to claw its way in. Inside, it's not much warmer. A single flickering flame dances in the hearth's belly, barely holding back the frost. And wrapped in a wool blanket that's seen better centuries, if it ever had one, lies Ella. She's 19, but this winter has made her bones feel twice that. Maybe it's the nights on straw, maybe it's the damp, maybe it's the fact that her blanket now weighs as much as a medium-sized ox, thanks to layers of grime, damp, and the occasional mouse nest. No one knows when it was last washed. No one dares. Ella stirs under the blanket like someone trying to escape a curse, not a bed. Her breath fogs the air above her face. She pulls the scratchy wool tighter around her, but it's like hugging a porcupine that resents you. Somewhere above, something scurries in the thatch. Probably a rat. Possibly something worse. It doesn't matter. If it's warm, it's family now. There's no bed frame. No mattress. Just a mound of flattened straw that smells faintly of mold, goat, and last month's fever. Her back is acquainted with every splinter in the floor beneath. Her pillow, a rolled cloak that used to belong to her uncle. He hasn't been seen since the frost came. No one's asking questions. Through the wooden slats in the wall, because yes, they have gaps, comes the hiss of the wind. It finds its way through every crack, curling under Ella's blanket like a thief with a chill agenda. There's no insulation, just wood, mud, and wishful thinking. And the roof? That's a patchwork of straw and luck, which groans with every gust like it's contemplating retirement. Ella opens her eyes to darkness. Real darkness. Not lights are off darkness, but the kind that presses in from all sides. The kind that makes you wonder if the world's still there when you blink. Somewhere in the corner, the last embers of the fire cough out a little light. Enough to show the silhouettes of a wooden bench, a bucket, and her younger brother curled like a grub next to the hearth. He's wrapped in a cloak so threadbare it's mostly holes stitched together by hope. His toes stick out, pale and motionless. Ella hopes he's asleep. She's not sure. There's no privacy. The entire family sleeps in one room. One fire, one draft, one collection of unpleasant smells. They've long since stopped noticing the stench of unwashed bodies and damp wool. It's just air now. She tries to stretch. Bad move. The cold hits like a slap from a snow-covered shovel. Her joints crackle like twigs. Her knees refuse to cooperate without negotiation. She pulls her limbs back into the fetal position. That's the only way to survive the night. Minimize surface area, maximize denial. She considers getting up, maybe throw another log on the fire, maybe rearrange the straw for the 100th time, but that means leaving her cocoon of relative not death. And out there, by the fire, it's even colder, because you have to move, you have to breathe, and movement means losing heat. No thank you. Instead, she lies there, waiting for sleep to take her again, or morning, whichever comes first. Neither is particularly generous. The wind whines again. This time something rattles, probably the shutter. It's just a wooden board held with twine. Sometimes it stays closed, sometimes it doesn't. Ella doesn't check. If it opens, the wind will visit. If it stays shut, the cold just leaks in slowly. Either way, her nose is already numb. This is life in winter for Ella. Not adventure, not romance, just survival. One breath at a time, one frostbitten toe closer to spring. And somewhere, beneath all that cold, a quiet thought burns in her mind. It could be worse. She could be outside. Then, a flicker of firelight dances on the ceiling. The flames catch a dry bit of peat and snap to life with a little more courage. It's warm for a few seconds, enough for Ella to wiggle her fingers under the blanket, enough to pretend it's not terrible, enough to keep going. Outside, the night rages. Inside, a girl breathes, and in the darkest, coldest corner of the medieval world, that's what victory looks like. Morning doesn't arrive. It sneaks in. A pale, indifferent light pushes through the cracks in the wooden walls like someone trying to peek into a secret they didn't really want to know. The hearth is down to ash and memory. The fire is gone. So is the warmth. And Ella is awake because she's cold, not because she's rested. She blinks slowly as if her eyelids are lined with frost. Her breath still fogs in the air. There's no rooster, no alarm, just the muffled clang of the church bell in the distance. That's the medieval version of "get up and suffer." The sound rolls through the frozen landscape and squeezes into her house like everything else unwanted. The blanket slides off her shoulder and immediately regret floods in. The air hits her skin like it's punishing her for existing. She jerks the wool back up and takes a moment to reconsider every life choice that brought her to this exact point. Technically, none of them were hers. She was born into this. Around her, the room is still. Her younger brother Milo is buried under his cloak, making small puffing sounds as he breathes. Their older sister, Anwen, stirs in the far corner, wrapped in what looks like 3 capes and a sheep. It might actually be a sheep. Hard to say. The room smells like it. There's no getting ready for the day. There's only accepting that it has started. Ella throws off the blanket, lets out a groan that sounds more goat than human, and steps onto the dirt floor. It's not just cold, it's wet, either from last night's melting snow that crept in or from the mysterious puddle that forms under the wall every week. Her foot squishes into it, and just like that, she's awake. There's no time for hygiene. There's barely time for survival. She grabs her outer tunic from the peg, stiff, brown, slightly damp, and pulls it over her inner layer. Both are made of coarse wool. Both smell like smoke and misery. Together they offer all the comfort of wearing a damp hay bale that's holding a grudge. There's no such thing as fashion. There's no mirror. The only reflection she ever sees is in the icy surface of the water bucket, and even that's usually distorted by floating debris. Her hair is tied with a scrap of linen. Her hands are cracked and red. Her nose hasn't felt warmth since October. She doesn't complain. She doesn't have the energy. Instead, she heads to the hearth. The ash is cold, the embers are dead, but she pokes around anyway, hoping for a miracle. No luck. The fire died sometime in the night. That means starting over. She crouches down and begins the ritual. Dry grass, kindling, a piece of cloth that used to be part of someone's undergarments, now repurposed as hope. She strikes flint against steel once, twice, 20 times. Sparks dance, refuse to catch. Her fingers go numb before the flame appears. Finally, a reluctant flicker. She blows gently, coaxing it like a stubborn child. It catches, hisses, and then becomes fire. Small, defiant, and probably temporary, but fire. With the room slowly warming by half a degree, Ella turns to the next priority: breakfast. Calling it breakfast is generous. What she has is pottage, always pottage, a thick, slow-moving blob of grains, root vegetables, and last week's decisions. It's been sitting in the pot since yesterday and the day before, and possibly since the last harvest. Ingredients are added on top of the old ones, stirred, reheated, reforgotten. She ladles out 3 portions into rough wooden bowls, one for Milo, one for Anwen, one for herself. The texture is somewhere between paste and regret. She eats slowly, mostly for the warmth. The taste is irrelevant. It always tastes like not enough. Anwen joins her, mumbling a greeting that sounds like a threat. Milo yawns and spills half his food on the floor. No one flinches. The dog might get it. If they had a dog. Conversation is limited. Mornings are about energy conservation. Speaking is for people who have extra calories to burn. Ella finishes her bowl and scrapes the last bit with a piece of bread so hard it should be registered as a weapon. This is the only meal until dusk. Maybe. She stands, wipes her mouth with the sleeve of her tunic, and begins wrapping her feet. She has no shoes. Few do. So she uses cloth strips, layering them around her toes like she's wrapping a gift no one wants. She tucks the ends into the binding and hopes it holds. Then she slips her cloak over her shoulders, once brown, now the color of soot and rain, and fastens it with a wooden peg. Outside, the light has grown. It's still gray, still miserable, but visible. She opens the door. It creaks like it's complaining. The cold rushes in like it's been waiting. Ella steps out onto frozen mud, crunching underfoot. The wind greets her with all the subtlety of a slap. The village is quiet. Smoke curls from a few chimneys. A cart creaks in the distance. A dog barks, then thinks better of it. Frost clings to every surface, roofs, fences, faces. She heads to the well. The bucket is frozen into the ice. She yanks, it resists. She yanks again, it groans. Finally it gives, spraying her with a mist of freezing water that makes her gasp. She fills it anyway. The workday hasn't started, but the struggle has, and somewhere behind her, the fire flickers in the hearth, trying, like all of them, not to go out. The water sloshes in the bucket, icy and heavy, every step sending needles of cold up Ella's arms. Her fingers grip the rough wooden handle, numb but determined. She doesn't spill a drop, not because of neatness, but because there's no spare water and no second trip. The well is shared, and the line behind her is growing. Nobody speaks in the cold. They just nod and breathe fog. Back inside the hut, she sets the bucket down near the hearth. Fernd, the fire is still alive, barely, but enough to warm a pot or wet a cloth. She stirs the pottage to keep it from solidifying into something with architectural potential. Milo is now awake, fully, and trying to warm his hands by sitting dangerously close to the flame. Ella nudges him back. No lectures, just motion. They've all been singed before. Clothes are layered again. Onwin wraps her scarf twice around her face until only her eyes peek out, suspicious and frost-rimmed. Ella pulls her sleeves down over her hands. Gloves, that's for nobility. They wrap rags, they tuck sleeves, they pray it's enough. The door creaks open again. This time, all three step out into the frozen air. The sun is rising now, not that you'd know it. The sky is the color of old linen, the light filtered through clouds thick as wool, their breath clouds together, rising like ghosts. They walk the path out of the village, if it can be called a path. It's more a suggestion of dirt that's been stomped into submission by years of boots, carts, and sheep. It crunches underfoot. Their rags soak in moisture from frost and muck. Ella's toes go numb around the second bend. She doesn't mention it. They pass other villagers, silent bundles of wool and exhaustion. No one says good morning. It isn't. There's no such thing. Fields stretch ahead, barren and brown, the earth hard as rock. This time of year, there's nothing to harvest, nothing to plant. The cold has put nature into lockdown, but that doesn't mean the work stops. There are fences to repair, animal pens to clean, firewood to gather, or try to. The forest's been stripped bare for miles. Ella and Anwen veer left toward the Lord's storage barn. They've been assigned to sweep and patch its roof today. Milo goes right toward the mill, where someone might need a runner, or a cleaner, or just a body to carry things. The barn looms like a frozen beast, made of timbers thick with age and disapproval. The door sticks. Ella leans into it, shoulder first. It groans open. Inside, the air is a degree warmer, just enough to remind them what they're missing. The floor is packed earth, the walls lined with hay bales and barrels. Somewhere a chicken clucks mournfully, trapped and regretting its life choices. Ella drops the broom with a thud. Anwen starts on the wall cracks, stuffing them with straw. They don't talk. Not because they don't want to, but because the air in their lungs is already too little, and words are luxury. They work in rhythm, the scrape of broom bristles, the rustle of straw, The occasional crash as something shifts in the rafters. Rats, maybe. Or just the building settling deeper into misery. Time passes without meaning. There's no clock, just aching backs and stiff fingers. Around mid-morning, Anwen stops to chew a piece of hard bread she pulled from her pouch. It looks like it's seen a war. Ella joins her, tearing off a piece with effort. It cracks like stone and tastes like sawdust. They eat in silence, sitting on an upturned bucket. Then the wind picks up, not outside, inside. Ella looks up. The hole in the roof has widened. Snow has begun to drift in, slow and passive-aggressive. Anwen sighs the sigh of someone who knew this was coming and hated being right. They fetch more straw, more mud. It's not insulation, it's theater. But they perform it anyway. They climb the ladder to the rafters. The wood is slick and cold. Ella's hands scream in protest as she grips the rung. At the top, the view is underwhelming. Warped planks, gaps wide enough for a goat to fall through, and snow building up in corners like the house itself is hoarding winter. They patch, they smear, they curse, silently, of course. By the time they descend, their fingers are raw. The pottage from earlier has burned off. Hunger gnaws, but there's no break. Breaks are for summer. The noon bell rings faintly through the chill somewhere in the village. They don't stop. There's no lunch. Just work until the work stops. Ella's legs feel hollow. Her knees wobble slightly as she returns to the broom. Anwen is rubbing her hands together, face hidden in scarf folds, eyes glassy. Still, they sweep. Still, they patch. Because what else is there? Outside, snow begins to fall. Thicker now, the kind that coats everything and hides the mess, like a liar in white. It seeps in under the barn door. It dusts their cloaks. Ella watches it settle on the broom handle, then wipes it off with a palm that stings from the cold. They finish at dusk, or what they think is dusk. The light fades, the wind sharpens. That's enough signal for them. They gather their tools, tuck them under their arms, and trudge back toward the village. Milo is waiting at the crossroads, shivering violently, face red from cold and frustration. No one needed him today, but he still had to be available. That's how service works. He holds nothing but a bruised turnip someone gave him out of pity. Together, they walk home. The door creaks again. Inside, the fire is gone. Again. Inside the hut, darkness waits like an old friend with bad timing. The fire has died again, and the air is damp with smoke that gave up. Ash lies in the hearth like a defeated soldier, gray and stubborn. The room feels colder than outside, because here, hope was supposed to live. Ella drops the tools by the door. They clatter, lifeless. Anwen moves silently, reaching for the fire-starting kit. No complaints, no drama, just routine. Milo shuffles to the far wall and slides down until he's a heap of scarf and legs. His turnip rolls from his hand and disappears into a corner. No one retrieves it. Starting a fire from scratch is an art form and a gamble. Anwen strikes the flint, once, twice, 15 times. Sparks flicker, fizzle. Ella leans in with a hollowed breath, holding the scraps of kindling like they're made of dreams. Finally a flicker, then flame, then the hiss of damp wood deciding whether or not to cooperate. The fire is born again, coughing and small. They sit around it like moths with nowhere else to be. The warmth is minimal. Symbolic, really. But they huddle close, letting it lick the edges of their boots and faces. The glow casts shadows on the wall, jagged shapes that move like ghosts remembering dance steps. Dinner is next, and it's familiar. The same pot of pottage, now thicker and more mysterious than ever. Ella gives it a stir, frowning as something gelatinous resists her spoon. She doesn't ask what it is. She doesn't want to know. 3 bowls, 3 scoops, 3 blank stares as they eat. The stew is hot. That's its only redeeming quality. The flavor is neutral, leaning towards soil. Anwen adds a pinch of salt from a tiny cloth pouch, smuggled from last month's feast day. It helps, barely. Milo slurps loudly and no one tells him to stop. The noise is oddly comforting. They finish in silence. Bowls are wiped clean with crusts of bread and left near the fire to dry. Dishes aren't washed at night. Water is too precious and hands too cold. Outside, the snow taps against the hut like it wants to be let in. The shutters creak, the roof groans. Somewhere above them, something skitters. Again, the thatch is alive, probably with mice, possibly worse, but definitely warm-blooded. They begin preparing for sleep, not that it's much of a process. Milo crawls to the corner near the hearth and wraps himself in a cloak that smells like goats and old battles. Anwin lays out the shared blanket on the straw pile, spreading it like a spell. Ella adds her own cloak to the mix, layering it like armor. She lies down first, back to the wall. Anwin joins her, their shoulders touching. No one speaks. There's nothing left to say. The fire crackles softly, throwing warmth at them in random pulses. It's like being loved by someone who's bad at it, but trying. Ella watches the flame dance through half-closed eyes. Her body aches in places she didn't know had muscles. Her feet burn from thawing. Her fingers twitch with phantom cold. Sleep doesn't come quickly. It's earned, not given. The hut makes noises as it settles for the night. Wood creaking, wind sneaking, rodents discussing their evening plans. One of them probably has a name by now. Ella thinks of calling it Bernard, but the idea of naming a mouse that poops near her head feels too personal. She adjusts her position slightly. The straw underneath her crackles and shifts. It's sharp in places, soft in others, and definitely infested with things better left unlisted. The blanket is heavy, not from weight, but from wear. It holds the smell of years, smoke, sweat, sickness, sorrow. It's not comforting, it's familiar. Outside, the snow thickens. It covers the world in silence. A muffled hush that erases footprints and memories alike. Somewhere, a wolf howls, or maybe just a very angry farmer. Either way, no one moves. Hours pass in fits. Ella dozes, dreams in fragments. A bowl of steaming soup, a bed with feathers, a room with windows that close. She wakes to Milo's foot pressing against her ribs. He mutters something about chickens, then stillness. Anwin shifts and lets out a sigh so tired it almost apologizes for existing. The fire dims. The last log glows red. The warmth wanes. Ella reaches an arm out, adjusts the wood, adds a sliver of kindling. The flame rises like a tired soldier summoned once more. It burns with effort, not enthusiasm, but it's enough. For now. She lies back down, breath fogging, eyes blinking slow, and then in the quiet something extraordinary. Laughter. Milo giggles. Not loudly, not long, just a spark of something human in the cold void. Ella turns her head. "What's funny?" she asks, voice hoarse from the day. "I dreamed the bread was soft," he whispers. She chuckles. "It hurts a little," Anwin mumbles. "Liar. No one's that lucky." But her tone is soft, almost playful. For a second, they're just siblings again. Not peasants, not statistics, just people trying not to freeze. The fire crackles again, as if it approves. The snow falls outside. The wind whispers at the shutters. And inside the fragile shell of sticks and straw and stubbornness, 3 children sleep beside a flame, still cold but not alone. Morning arrives again, slow and rude. The fire is now cold ash, the kind that bites your skin if you breathe too close. The air is damp, the kind of damp that clings to your bones and whispers, "Good luck out there." Ella's eyes open before the church bell rings, not because she's rested, but because the corner of the straw pile jabbed her kidney like it had a personal grudge. She shifts, groans, and immediately regrets moving. Every joint clicks like old wood under pressure. Beside her, Anwin is still asleep, or pretending to be. Milo has somehow cocooned himself entirely in his cloak, legs splayed out like a dropped puppet. The room is silent, not peaceful, just exhausted. Ella sits up. Her breath fogs, her hair is stiff from cold and sweat. She peels herself from the straw bed and wraps her cloak tight. It doesn't help much, but the gesture is comforting. She looks down at the fire pit. Nothing but gray dust. She sighs. Another fire to rebuild. She nudges the embers, finds a tiny orange glow hiding in the ash. Good enough. She adds slivers of kindling, blowing gently like she's trying to coax a shy child out from behind a door. The flame catches, slowly. The room fills with thin smoke and thin light. Ella turns her attention to the pot. Pottage again, obviously. She stirs it absently with a wooden spoon that's starting to splinter. It bubbles reluctantly. She sniffs it. Still smells like root vegetable with hints of desperation. Better than nothing. By now, Anwen has sat up. She wraps a scarf around her head without speaking. Milo groans into his cloak. Breakfast begins the way it always does. Slow, half asleep, mostly silent. 3 bowls, 3 scoops, 3 different methods of pretending it tastes okay. Milo tries to talk with his mouth full. Ella gives him a look. Anwen rolls her eyes. Family bonding, medieval edition. Once the bowls are scraped clean, mostly by necessity, not enthusiasm, they begin dressing for the day. Everything is stiff. The cloaks haven't dried from yesterday's snow. The rags for their feet are still damp. The wool smells like rain and something vaguely alive, possibly the goat. Today, they've been told to help with repairs near the village road. A fence collapsed under the weight of ice. It's not exciting, but it's work. Work means food. Sometimes. They step outside. The cold slaps them like it missed them overnight. Snow still clings to the ground, trodden into gray slush. Their boots, or the cloth approximations of boots, soak through instantly. Ella doesn't even flinch anymore. The village is stirring. Thin trails of smoke rise from chimneys. A few figures move along the path, wrapped in layers, heads down, shuffling like they're being chased by regret. One man coughs so hard he has to lean against a wall. No one stops. They pass the well. A queue has already formed. No talking, just nods and foggy breath. Milo slows to peek into the black water, then moves on. At the fence, they find 2 other villagers already working. One is trying to hammer a frozen post into the ground with what looks like half a brick. It's not going well. The other is cursing softly in a way that implies this fence has personally offended him. Ella and Anwen join without a word. They grab splintered boards, gather scattered tools, and begin patching. It's not glamorous, it's not even effective, but it's something to do. The wind never stops. It whips down the road like it's got business. It finds every hole in every coat and dances along every exposed knuckle. Ella's hands go numb, then burn, then go numb again. A cart rolls past, pulled by a mule that looks equally tired of winter. The driver nods. A barrel falls off. No one helps. By midday, the fence looks better. Not good, but upright. Mostly. The man with the brick grudge grunts in satisfaction. The other one sneezes 3 times in a row and mutters something about cursed air. Ella stretches her back, wincing. Her knees pop. Anwen cracks her neck. Milo, who's been mostly hauling wood and looking annoyed about it, kicks a rock with unnecessary force. It bounces off a frozen patch and almost takes out a chicken. They all pause. The chicken looks offended. Work over, they trudge back to the hut. The sun is out, technically, but the warmth hasn't arrived. It hangs above the village like a stingy landlord. Inside, the hut welcomes them with smoke and silence. The fire has gone out again. They restart it. Again. Dinner is more pottage. No surprises there. Ella adds a few dried herbs someone traded them last week. It helps, a little. Milo complains about the texture. Anwen throws a piece of bread at him. It bounces off his forehead like a rock. Everyone laughs, briefly. Then the room goes quiet again. They eat, they sit by the fire, they exist. Night comes, they huddle close, and once again they prepare to do it all over again tomorrow. Because this is winter, and this is life. The wind returns at night. Not the gentle kind that whispers through trees, but the aggressive kind that sounds like it's arguing with the walls. The shutters rattle like loose teeth. The roof moans under the weight of snow and regret, and inside the hut, the fire dwindles again, more ember than flame. Ella lies awake, staring at the ceiling. She counts creaks, listens to mice in the thatch, hears Anwen's breathing change as she shifts in her sleep. Milo is snoring like a small, overworked ox. It's not loud but consistent, one of the few stable things in their lives. The cold creeps in. It always does. It doesn't knock. It just seeps through the walls, through the floor, through the blanket that now smells like wood smoke and human fatigue. Ella pulls her cloak tighter. It does nothing. She lets her eyes close, trying to drift. Tries to think warm thoughts. A summer field. A loaf of fresh bread. A fire that burns all night without dying. A bath. She snorts quietly. Even her dreams know better. Eventually sleep comes, not because it's peaceful, but because the body gives up. Morning comes without apology. The church bell rings again. Ella opens her eyes, her back stiff and mouth dry. Milo is already up, poking the fire with what used to be a spoon but is now mostly charcoal. He looks like he didn't sleep at all. Or maybe that's just what everyone looks like in winter. Anwen is still bundled, face hidden under layers. One eye peeks out, unimpressed with the new day. Ella stretches. Her joints sound like cracking ice. She stands, shakes out her cloak, and begins her now standard inspection of the fire pit. Still warm. A good sign. A few embers remain. She adds wood slowly, like bribing a tired animal. Flame sparks. Relief. She stirs the pottage. It's become more solid overnight. Less soup, more artifact. She adds water. Pretends that fixes everything. It doesn't. Breakfast is identical to yesterday and the day before. The same texture, the same taste, the same barely concealed expressions. But it's hot counts. They eat with their usual silence, just the sound of spoons scraping wooden bowls and teeth trying not to bite through rye bread hard enough to chip a tooth. Today's work assignment is a short walk away, hauling firewood from the manor store to the chapel. The snow has made the road impassable for carts, so the Lord Steward has called for bodies. Ella, Anwen, and Milo are 3 such bodies. They layer up again. Same cloaks, same damp wool, same determination. Outside, the air cuts like a blade, sharp, direct, offended by their presence. The path to the manor is a slush trench, packed by dozens of frozen boots. Mud clings to everything, freezes mid-step, then crumbles like wet parchment. The chapel looms in the distance, its stone tower gray and quiet. It looks like it's watching them. At the storage barn, a steward waves them over. He says nothing, just points at the woodpile. It's larger than expected. The logs are frozen together in clumps, refusing to be useful. Ella grabs one, tries to break it loose. It resists. They begin. Each log is hauled by hand across the icy ground, down the slope to the chapel steps. Then again, and again, and again. Milo slips once and lands flat on his back. He groans. No one laughs. The steward raises an eyebrow. Milo gets up and keeps going. Anwen moves like a machine. No complaints, no rest, just repetition. Ella matches her pace, though her arms start to ache before noon. Her fingers throb from the cold. Her breath feels like ice forming inside her lungs. They don't stop. There's no one to stop for. Eventually, the steward nods. They're dismissed. No words, no thanks. Just a motion of his hand and a muttered, "Done." The siblings trudge back toward the village. Milo's lips are blue. Anwen's nose is running. Ella's cloak is stiff with frozen sweat. Inside the hut, the fire greets them with a weak flicker. The warmth feels like a joke, but they huddle around it anyway, holding out numb hands like beggars before a reluctant king. Dinner is predictable. Pottage, a few stale onions thrown in for excitement. The bread is harder than earlier. Milo knocks his bowl with it like he's testing a drum. Anwen tells him to eat or starve. He eats. Night falls. Again. Ella sits by the fire longer than usual, watching the flames shift. The wood crackles like distant applause. The room glows gold for a moment, and in that moment, everything almost feels okay. Anwen dozes in the straw pile. Milo is curled up near the hearth, face buried in his scarf. Ella stays seated, legs crossed, eyes half closed. Tomorrow will be the same, but tonight, there's a fire. Snow falls again during the night. Not loud, not wild, just steady, quiet and confident, like it knows it's winning. Inside the hut, the world is still. The fire has surrendered to ash once more, and the cold has crept back into every corner. It climbs the walls, it hugs the floor, it makes itself comfortable like a rude guest that never leaves. Ella wakes before the others. Her face is numb. Her fingers are curled beneath her chin inside the blanket, stiff and clumsy. She breathes in through her nose, winces. It burns. She sits up slowly, every movement a negotiation with sore muscles. The room is gray in the morning light with that familiar medieval gloom. Half daylight, half defeat. She looks around. Milo is wrapped like a larva in his cloak, twitching slightly in a dream. Anwen is pressed to the wall, one arm flung over her face, escaping the world even in sleep. Ella moves toward the hearth, quiet as a ghost. The ashes are cold. No ember remains. She sighs, quiet, through her teeth. Rebuilding a fire from nothing takes time and fingers. She finds kindling, some dry straw, and the stub of last week's candle. She strikes flint, once, twice, 30 times. A spark, then a thread of smoke, then flame. It's not victory, it's survival. She sits back on her heels, watching the fire wake. The glow returns slowly, licking at the sides of the pot as if testing whether to bother staying lit. Breakfast. No surprises there. The pottage has turned into a congealed lump. Ella adds water, stirs, and breaks it up like breaking bad news. The smell rises, onion, oat, and the hint of something no one has identified yet. Maybe it used to be a turnip, maybe it's just memory. By the time the others stir, the bowls are ready. Milo stretches with a noise like a creaky cartwheel. Anwen blinks, then groans. It's their way of saying good morning. They eat, wordless but not unkind. Outside, the wind howls. Again, today's task, collecting peat. The wood stores are low, and the steward has said they'll be using turf for heat now. It burns slow, smells like sorrow. But it works. Ella pulls on her boots, or what remains of them. Just layers of cloth wrapped tight and tied with string. She tucks them into her trousers. It doesn't keep the cold out, it just hides the evidence. Anwen does the same. Milo ties his scarf 3 times around his head until he looks like an unhappy onion. They step outside. The world is white. Snow covers everything. The path to the village is just a hint of trampled footsteps now, barely visible beneath the new layer. The sky hangs low and gray, pressing down like a ceiling made of regret. They walk in silence. Their boots crunch with each step. Milo hums something under his breath, a song with no melody, just rhythm. It fills the space between the wind. At the edge of the bog, a steward is already waiting. He holds a long stick and a glare. He doesn't greet them, just points at the field. Take the spades, he says. Cut deep. Peat harvesting is a strange thing. You dig down, not wide. You cut into the earth itself. Thick, wet slabs of brown-black turf. Heavy, smelly, dense. It's like pulling bricks from a grave. Ella grips her spade and steps into the marshy soil. It squelches. Her foot sinks. She begins cutting. The work is slow. Every slab has to be carved, lifted, stacked. It sticks to her gloves, smears on her cloak. The smell is part rot, part history. It fills her nose. It clings to her clothes. Milo slips once, falling into a half-dug trench. He swears, muffled by his scarf. Anwen helps him up without a word. They work for hours. Hands blister. Backs ache. The piles of peat grow. So does the silence. A few other villagers are here too. No one talks. Just the sound of spades hitting wet ground and the soft slap of turf being thrown onto sleds. By midday, Ella's arms are trembling. Her breath clouds in front of her face in sharp bursts. She wants to sit. Just a minute, but sitting means freezing. So she keeps going. The steward finally waves them off. Enough for today. They drag the sleds back toward the village, feet slipping on the snow-covered road. The sled ropes dig into Ella's hands. Her fingers are raw. She doesn't let go. Back in the village, the peat is unloaded near the church steps. It'll dry there, maybe. If the snow eases, if the wind allows it, if the laws of nature take a day off. They return to the hut. Inside, the fire is alive. Not bright, not roaring, but waiting. Ella falls to her knees beside it. Her hands hover over the flames. She can't feel them at first. Then comes the sting as blood returns like pins under her skin. She hisses quietly, eyes closed. Anwen is already peeling off her outer cloak. Milo flops down face first onto the straw. No one tells him to move. Dinner is pottage. What else? Ella stirs it slowly. The rhythm calms her. Anwen passes her a pinch of dried herbs from her pouch. It's barely anything, but it changes the flavor, just slightly. Enough to pretend. They eat, and sit and breathe. The fire pops, sparks fly, the wind wails at the shutters, furious that it's been shut out. And inside, in the dim golden glow, Ella exhales, still tired, still cold, but still here. The fire held through the night, not strong, not bold, but stubborn. By morning, it's a glow rather than a blaze, like an old soldier too tired to stand but too proud to fall. Ella wakes to that faint orange flicker and a draft nudging her cheek. The room smells of smoke, sweat, and boiled oats. Medieval comfort. She lifts the blanket. The cold greets her like a debt collector. Her muscles are stiff. Her neck aches from the straw pillow that flattened sometime last month. Still, she sits up. Milo's curled near the hearth, cloak over his head. Onwin is a shapeless bundle on the other side, emitting a sound halfway between a sigh and a growl. Ella stands, stretches, and cracks. Knees, back, one shoulder. Her body makes more noise than the fire. She tends to the hearth first. No ember can be wasted. She feeds it kindling gently, coaxing it like a fragile truth. The flame grows, reluctantly. A little heat spills into the room like spilled soup. Not enough, but you'll take it. Then, the pot. She lifts the lid and immediately regrets it. The pottage from last night has developed a personality. She stirs it slowly, breaking up the semi-solid layer on top with care usually reserved for surgery. The smell is familiar, earthy, sour, and somehow nostalgic. She adds a bit of water, thins it out, good enough. By the time Anwin and Milo are upright, bowls are waiting. No one thanks her. No one needs to. It's routine. They sit. They slurp. Milo tries to talk mid-bite. Anwin shushes him without looking up. Halfway through the meal, the knock comes. It's not loud, just two sharp taps on the wooden door, polite but firm. Ella opens it. A steward stands outside, cloaked and hooded, his breath a cloud. He doesn't remove the scarf covering his mouth, probably for the best. He says only one thing, latrine trench, behind the manor. Ella nods, he leaves. No one says anything for a long moment. Milo stares into his bowl. Anwin finishes her last bite, sets it down carefully, then leans her head back against the wall like she's trying to teleport. They all knew this task would come eventually. Cleaning the trench is a seasonal reality. A cold, wet, profoundly unpleasant reality. They prepare. Cloaks. Extra rags for their hands. Scarves doubled and tripled around mouths and noses. Milo wraps his so tightly he looks like a muffled bandit. Anwin layers two hoods. Ella finds a piece of waxed cloth to tie over her shoulders. It won't help much, but at least the effort feels meaningful. Outside, sleet is falling. It's not dramatic, just insistent. A steady drizzle of sharp, icy rain that makes the skin sting and the ground shine. The path to the manor is half mud, half ice. Their boots, or what passes for them, soak through within 5 steps. No one complains. There's no point. The manor looms as they approach. Gray stone, dark windows, and smoke curling from its chimney. It watches the village like a sleeping beast that only occasionally eats you. The steward waits behind it, beside the trench. There's no ceremony, no tools offered beyond shovels, no encouragement, just a nod toward the wooden plank covering the latrine pit, and a muttered, "Don't fall in." The smell is already present, not overpowering, just patient. It's waiting for them to get closer, which they do, slowly. Ella lifts the first plank. The stench hits like a betrayal. Milo coughs violently into his scarf. Anwin stares into the middle distance, eyes unfocused. Ella just breathes through her mouth and accepts the situation like a tax. The trench has not been emptied in weeks, maybe months. The contents defy description, so they don't describe them. They just dig. Scoop, lift, toss, repeat. The cold helps. It's the only upside. Everything is semi-frozen, solid-ish. That makes it easier to move, and slightly less horrifying. Slightly. Still, the smell seeps through cloth, through skin, through time. They work in shifts. One digs while the others rest nearby, trying not to breathe, then switch. The sleet soaks them steadily. The mud becomes a paste that clings to boots and hems. Occasionally, someone slips. Once, Milo lands on his knee with a thud. He doesn't get up for a full minute. Anwin says nothing the entire time. Her silence is impressive, Also alarming. By midday, the trench is less full. Not clean, not empty, just less. The steward reappears, gives a cursory glance, and waves them off. That'll do. Ella wants to scream. Instead, she nods. They trudge home. Every step squelches. Every breath is sour. No one talks. Back at the hut, they peel off outer layers near the fire. The steam rises immediately. The smell follows. The entire room smells like the trench now. Milo gags. Anwin lies down and pulls a blanket over her head. Ella just stares into the fire. Dinner is impossible, not because there's no food, but because nothing seems edible when your nose is still haunted. Ella stirs the pottage. The motion is mechanical. She sets it aside. They sit in silence, wrapped in their cloaks, waiting for the smell to fade, for the night to come, for the memory of the trench to dissolve. The fire crackles, the wind whistles, and the trench, now covered and forgotten, waits for spring. The next morning arrives like a thief. No warning, no warmth, just a gray smear of light pushing past the shutter cracks, dragging another winter day behind it. Ella opens her eyes and immediately regrets it. Her throat feels like she's been gargling dust, and her back insists it slept on bricks. She sits up, hair tangled, mouth dry, and eyes stinging. The smell from yesterday's trench duty still lingers faintly in her cloak. It has somehow soaked into her existence. Milo is already awake, poking half-heartedly at the fire with a stick. The flame flickers, undecided. Anwin is still buried under blankets, making that low grumble sound she reserves for particularly miserable mornings, which is most of them. Ella pulls her cloak tighter around her shoulders and stands. Her feet find the cold floor like two reluctant volunteers. She crosses to the hearth, kneels, and adds a small piece of dry wood. The fire brightens slightly. It's not warmth yet, but it's trying. The pottage pot sits in the same place it always does, center stage in the drama that is their daily nutrition. Ella stirs it. It's thick again. Less soup, more history. She adds water, breaks it up, and waits for it to bubble. The smell is vaguely vegetal, possibly turnip adjacent. Comforting in the way damp socks can be familiar. Breakfast is served with the same ceremony as always. None. Bowls are passed. Slurping occurs. No one speaks much. Milo tries to tell a joke about the latrine trench. Anwin throws a crust of bread at him. It bounces off his scarf and lands in his bowl. He shrugs and eats it. Today's work is different. They're going to the woods, not to chop trees. They don't have an axe, but to scavenge branches, twigs, anything burnable. The peat is nearly gone. The woodpile is a joke, and the fire, as loyal as it's been, is hungry. They dress in their usual armor, layers of wool, damp boots, and a prayer that today won't involve falling into anything. The walk to the woods is long, past the village, past the fields, past the idea of comfort. The snow crunches beneath their feet, then slushes, then freezes again. Every step is a negotiation. The wind is sharper here, less distracted by buildings. It bites their faces, tugs at their scarves. Milo trips twice. Anwin doesn't slow. The woods appear like a line of shadows against the horizon. Trees stripped bare by winter, branches skeletal and creaking in the breeze. It's not a forest, it's a graveyard of leaves. They spread out. Each has a sack, patched and fraying. They scour the ground for fallen limbs, dry bark, even twigs. Nothing is too small. Everything burns. Ella finds a patch under a bent tree where the snow hasn't fully covered the ground. She kneels, brushing snow aside with her gloves, revealing a treasure trove of brittle sticks. She gathers them quickly, stuffing her sack. Anwen works silently nearby, moving like she's part of the forest. Milo sings softly to himself, off-key and mostly nonsense. It's his defense mechanism. A branch snaps under Ella's foot, startling a crow from the trees. It flies upward, wings beating the cold air with a sound that feels like winter screaming. She watches it disappear into the sky, black against white. Time passes in work, quiet, repetition, cold. Their fingers grow stiff, noses run, scarves get damp. Ella stops once to knock ice from the hem of her cloak. It shatters like glass. By midday, their sacks are half full. Not enough. Never enough. They keep going. Milo finds a chunk of old pine log buried under snow. He calls out triumphantly. Anwin helps him dig it free. Together, they drag it to the path. It'll burn hot if they can split it. Later problem. Ella finds a rabbit print in the snow. Small, fresh. She follows it briefly, wondering if it might lead to a burrow. It ends under a thorn bush. Nothing. She returns to collecting sticks. By the time the sun begins its slow descent, early as always, they head back. Sacks heavy, bodies heavier. The road home is quieter. Even Milo isn't humming. Back in the hut, they unload the bounty beside the hearth. The woodpile grows from pathetic to modest. The pine chunk leans against the wall, dripping melted snow. Ella lights the fire with a few dry twigs. It catches quickly. The flame leaps like it missed them. They sit around it, bags empty, shoulders aching. Dinner is, guess what? Pottage. Anwin adds a pinch of crushed dried herbs. They pretend it's different. They pretend it matters. Milo tells a story about a talking tree that gave away firewood to lost villagers. No one believes him, but no one stops him. Ella smiles, mouth full. After the bowls are clean, licked, really, they sit close to the fire. The pine log will wait until tomorrow. Tonight, they let the flame eat the smaller sticks, the brittle branches, the bits of forest they brought home. And for once, the hut is almost warm. Almost. That night, they sleep deeper than usual. Maybe it's the fire, finally burning strong, belly full of forest kindling. Maybe it's the pine log leaning against the wall like a silent promise. Or maybe it's just exhaustion, the kind that anchors your bones and presses your dreams into the straw. Whatever it is, morning doesn't arrive with its usual cruelty. Ella wakes slowly, warm under the blanket, her face flushed instead of frozen. The fire is still glowing. A miracle. A fire that survived the night is like winning the lottery in a world without money. She blinks into the orange light, hears Anwin's soft breathing beside her and the faint rustling of Milo adjusting his position near the hearth. For a moment, everything feels suspended, quiet, golden, still. Then comes the knock. Not a tap. A full rap, rap, rap. Urgent. Cold. Ella sits up fast, heart racing from the sudden break in peace. She pushes the blanket aside and crosses the room in 3 quick steps. Her fingers undo the latch. The door opens. A boy stands outside, about Milo's age, red-faced, breathing hard. He doesn't wait for Ella to ask. The blacksmith's barn collapsed. He says it like that, like it's obvious what that means. But it takes Ella a second, then 2. Then she nods. The snow, the wind, the sagging roof. Of course it did. She turns. "Get up," she says. Anwin is already rising. Milo groans from the floor, but the tone in Ella's voice overrides his complaints. They dress fast. No breakfast, no pause. Outside, the world is white and sharp. The storm from last night has left a fresh layer of snow that squeaks underfoot. Smoke trails upward from chimneys, curling like question marks into the gray sky. At the blacksmith's, chaos. A corner of the barn has caved in entirely. Timbers snapped like toothpicks, thatch hanging down in clumps. The forge inside is intact, but barely. A horse stands nearby, wide-eyed and snorting, tied to a post that's leaning at a suspicious angle. Villagers gather, some offering help, others just watching. The blacksmith himself, arms thick as firewood and face set like stone, is trying to shift a beam by himself. Ella rushes forward, Anwin follows. Milo hesitates, then runs after them. They don't need instruction, they just start. The work is immediate, heavy and cold. Snow-covered beams must be moved. Wall segments reinforced with extra timber, tools salvaged. The forge cleared. Milo is sent to fetch rope. Anwin climbs onto the half-collapsed loft with a hammer and a look that dares gravity to try her. Ella helps the blacksmith wedge a support post under the sagging roof. Every breath fogs, every step slips, every minute counts. At one point, someone shouts. A crate of iron scraps topples, nearly hitting a child. Milo dives, grabs the boy, rolls away just in time. The villagers cheer briefly, then work resumes, because winter doesn't care about close calls. By midday, they've stabilized one wall. The forge is usable again. The barn is still wounded, but standing. The blacksmith claps Ella on the back hard enough to knock air from her lungs. She nods, coughing, not sure if that means thank you or get back to work. Either way, she moves on. The rest of the day blurs into effort. Hammering, lifting, binding, sweating under frozen clothes. When it's over, the sky is already darkening. The snow begins again, lazy and light, as if pretending it hadn't ruined the morning. The walk home is slow. Muscles scream, fingers twitch. Every step is a test of will. But there's something different in the air now. Pride? No, that's too strong. Satisfaction. They helped, and nothing fell on their heads. Inside the hut, the fire is low but alive. Ella drops her gloves near it, fingers aching. Anwen lowers herself onto the straw bed like a collapsed tower. Milo stands, arms out, face blank, clearly waiting for someone to remove his cloak, because he can't lift his arms anymore. Ella obliges, smirking. Dinner is delayed. No one's hungry, just tired. But eventually the pot is stirred. The pottage is thinner, and no one cares. They eat slowly, quietly. Milo breaks the silence with a grunt. I think I'm turning into a plank. Anwen mutters, then lies still and become useful furniture. Ella laughs. It hurts, but it's worth it. Outside, the wind whistles low like it's tired too. Inside, the siblings sit together by the fire, and for the first time all week, they feel strong. The next morning begins with something unusual. Silence. Not the usual silence of winter, cold, expectant, pressing down like a wool blanket on your ears, but a true bone-deep stillness. No wind, no creaking trees, no footsteps outside, just the sound of slow breathing and the occasional pop from the fire. Ella blinks awake, confused. The hut is warmer than usual. Not warm, of course. That would be fantasy, but less brutal. The air doesn't bite. The blanket doesn't feel like a punishment. She sits up slowly. Anwen is already awake, staring at the ceiling like it just said something suspicious. Milo's still asleep, mouth open, limbs tangled, the picture of undignified peace. Ella glances to the window slit. No snow, no storm, just pale light. She pulls on her boots, still damp from yesterday, of course, and moves to the door. Outside, the sky is clear, not blue. That's too much to hope for, but brighter, less gray, and quiet. She steps out, breath fogging gently. The village feels paused. Smoke rises from chimneys, but no one's shouting. No cartwheels creak. No animals cry out for feed. A pause in the misery. Ella knows it won't last. She ducks back in. Breakfast is light, only enough pottage for 2 small servings each. Anwen cuts the bread into thin strips like she's performing surgery. Milo finally stirs, sniffing the air like a fox. His hair is spectacularly flattened on one side. No one comments. They eat slowly, no rush, no assignment yet. A knock comes late, and it's different, gentler. It's the midwife. She stands in the doorway, face kind, cloak dusted with frost. She speaks softly. The tanner's wife is in labor. They need hands. Ella nods immediately. She stands. Milo opens his mouth to complain. Anwen elbows him preemptively. They follow the midwife up the road, boots crunching in the half-melted snow. The sun is visible now, a faint disk behind gauze clouds. Shadows stretch long and thin. It feels like a painting of winter rather than the real thing. The tanner's house is larger than theirs. 2 rooms, a real door. But inside, it's the same scent of smoke and sweat and effort. The wife is on a straw bed, groaning. 2 women work beside her. The air is thick with tension and herbs. Water boils in a pot over the fire. Cloths hang everywhere. Ella is handed a bucket and a cloth. No questions, just movement. She works without thinking. Wipes the woman's forehead, clears space, runs for clean water, replaces soiled rags. Milo carries wood, wide-eyed, silent for once. Anwen helps the midwife grind herbs. No one speaks unless needed. Hours pass. The screams get louder, then stop, then louder again. Ella grips the woman's hand through a contraction. The tanner stands in the corner like a man sentenced. He looks like he wants to help and also disappear. Finally, a cry, tiny, shrill, real. Everyone exhales. A girl. The midwife smiles, the tanner slumps, Ella steps back, her arms ache, her back is sore, but she feels something. Hope, maybe, or just relief. She steps outside for air. Milo joins her, pale and stunned. "That was loud," he says. Ella nods. "I didn't know people made that noise." They do. Anwen emerges behind them, face flushed, arms crossed. "She's fine. The baby's fine. They'll live." It sounds like a declaration of war against winter. They return home just before dusk. No fire, no food. But also, no frostbite. They rebuild the fire slowly. The pine log is split, finally. It burns hot. Dinner is thinner than ever. Just broth. But no one complains. They sit around the flame, closer than usual. A baby was born today, and nothing collapsed. That's almost a miracle. That night, the fire burns brighter than it has in days. The pine log finally gives its gift, heat that actually reaches their toes, warmth that doesn't vanish the moment you blink. The hut glows gold, shadows swaying lazily on the walls like tired dancers. For once, the light feels less symbolic, more real. Ella watches the flames with a kind of reverence. Her hands, calloused and red, stretch toward the heat. They don't ache for the first time in what feels like weeks. Her back still throbs, but it's a dull, distant thing now, background noise in the melody of survival. Anwen sits beside her, cloak draped over her lap, eyes half closed. Milo is curled near the hearth, legs tucked in, arms under his chin like a cat too stubborn to admit it's cold. No one speaks much, but it's not silence, it's rest. After the long hours at the tanner's, after birth and boiling water and the 1,000 quiet panics of a peasant delivery, this quiet is earned. Ella breathes in deeply. The air still smells like pottage, but there's also pine smoke and the faintest hint of herbs from the midwife's pouch that clung to her sleeves. She smiles. Not a big smile, just a shift at the corner of her mouth. Milo blinks at her. "Why are you doing that with your face?" Anwen kicks him lightly. "Shut up and enjoy not freezing to death." He shrugs, accepts this wisdom, and resumes his impersonation of a bundled rock. The fire burns late. Later than usual. They don't rush to sleep because sleep means waking up again. And waking up usually means cold and pain and responsibility. But tonight, they let the flames talk for them. When Ella finally lies down, it's with a kind of peace she hasn't felt since before the first snowfall. The straw pokes her arms, sure. The blanket still smells like smoke and whatever that mossy smell is, but the ache in her ribs is quieter. She falls asleep fast and dreams of things that don't bite. Morning arrives with its usual gray light, but it's different. There's a hum in the village today, not literal music, but the kind of vibration that moves through the air when people are talking to each other, not just past each other. The news has spread. A baby born in midwinter, alive, healthy. It's not just good news, it's proof that something can survive this season besides mold and regret. Ella and her siblings eat quickly. No work has been assigned yet, but they know better than to wait. They clean their bowls, gather their layers, and prepare for whatever today requires. Before they leave, Ella slips a sliver of dried apple into her pouch, just in case. Outside, the sky is a lighter shade of something don't trust it. Clouds move like gossip across the horizon, fast and full of secrets. The wind has calmed, but the cold still nips at ears and noses like a hungry ant. They walk past the well. The rope is frozen in a curl. Past the chapel, smoke rises from its chimney in a straight line, a rare sign of still air. At the manor, the steward meets them with a new task. Roof repairs. A cottage on the edge of the village has lost part of its thatch. Snow got in. The woman inside is sick. No family. No one else available. Ella doesn't hesitate. Anwen nods. Milo grimaces but follows. They gather materials from the storehouse, bundles of reeds, twine, rusted nails, and a wooden ladder that looks like it's considering retirement. Then they hike up the slope toward the lone cottage. It's worse than expected. The thatch has caved in entirely on one side. Snow has gathered inside like an unwanted guest. The door hangs ajar. The woman inside lies on a straw mat, bundled in every blanket she owns, coughing like she's trying to argue with death. Ella feels her stomach drop, but they keep moving. Anwen goes inside to speak softly with the woman, to offer tea and adjust the rags under her head. Milo and Ella set the ladder. The climb is treacherous. The roof beams are slick, some cracked. The old thatch clings in places like a comb-over, desperate and ineffective. Ella begins pulling the ruined pieces free, her gloves quickly soaking. Her fingers go numb within minutes. Milo hands her bundles of new reeds. She presses them down, ties them, repeats. The wind picks up mid-task, just enough to make things miserable. Snowflakes return, tiny, sharp, sarcastic. But Ella keeps going because the woman inside is coughing and the roof is her only shield. By midday, the patch is mostly sealed. Not perfect, not beautiful, but no longer open to the sky. Anwen helps the woman sit up, offers her warm broth from a shared pot. Milo carries in extra firewood. Ella double-checks the bindings on the roof before climbing down, boots slipping once, but catching. They don't get thanked. They don't need it. The warmth in the woman's eyes is enough. They trudge home, snow swirling. Inside their hut, the fire is low. They build it up again. No fanfare, just necessity. Dinner is thinner than usual, but it tastes better. Maybe because they earned it. Maybe because it followed a day where someone else got to be warm. That night, the snow returns. Not as a blizzard, not as a storm, but as a quiet, steady reminder that winter has no intention of leaving. It falls with theatrical slowness, drifting past the shutter cracks, dusting the roof with a layer so soft it dares you to think it's harmless. Ella wakes briefly in the night to the sound of it, a whisper like old secrets brushing across the roof. She stares at the low ceiling for a moment, then turns over, curling into her cloak tighter. The warmth inside the blanket is rapidly losing its grip. By morning, everything outside is smothered in white. Everything inside is silent. The fire has died again. Of course it has. Ella sits up slowly, the cold biting at her cheeks and the tips of her fingers. The air tastes like smoke and breath and dry wood that has long since burned. She squints toward the hearth. Nothing but ashes and a few sullen coals that seem to judge her laziness. She rises carefully, trying not to wake Milo, who is sprawled near the fire like a poorly folded sack. Anwen is already awake, seated near the wall, needle and thread in hand. She's darning a hole in her glove with that familiar look, equal parts precision and disdain. Ella kneels by the hearth and begins coaxing the embers. A bit of straw, a few broken sticks, a prayer whispered under her breath. Eventually the fire catches. It hisses, then crackles, as if annoyed it had to be summoned so early. Breakfast is thinner than usual. There's barely enough pottage for 3 bowls. The bread is hard, and they take turns softening pieces in their bowls before chewing. Milo mutters something about the bread doubling as a weapon. No one laughs. They're too cold. Today is Sunday, church work, which means scrubbing stone floors and polishing brass and not talking back while the priest says things like mortification of the flesh in a warm robe that clearly has more layers than theirs. Ella hates Sundays, not because of faith, but because nothing about it feels holy, only exhausting. They finish eating, stack bowls, wrap themselves in cloaks that barely do their job. Then comes the knock. It's light, almost uncertain. Ella opens the door to see the midwife standing there, cheeks red from the wind. Her scarf is askew. Snow clings to her hair. Beside her stands a boy, no older than 8 or 9, thin, pale, wrapped in a patchwork cloak that's too big in the shoulders and too short at the wrists. His boots are 2 different sizes. His face is blank. The midwife doesn't waste words. This is Tomas. His father passed this morning. Ella feels her stomach drop. No mother is mentioned, which usually means there wasn't one left to begin with. She nods, because what else can you do? The boy steps inside without a word. Anwen shifts to make space on the bedroll. Milo blinks, looks at Ella, then at the boy. Then wordlessly hands over a small puppet made from scrap cloth and straw. Tomas takes it, doesn't smile, just holds it. They settle quickly. There's no ceremony in survival. That night, the fire burns low again, but the room feels fuller. 4 bodies pressed close means shared warmth, shared silence. Ella doesn't sleep easily. She keeps waking to adjust the blanket, which refuses to cover all of them properly. She finally sacrifices her end of it and curls tighter, pulling her cloak over her head. By dawn, her neck is stiff and her arm numb. But no one froze. She counts that as victory. Church waits. They gather their layers, bundle Tomas in an extra scarf. He doesn't protest, just follows. The chapel is colder than the hut. Somehow. Inside, the air smells like wax and stone. The priest, already present, gives them a curt nod and a pointed glance at the buckets. Cleaning begins. Ella takes the left aisle. Anwin takes the right. Milo handles the altar steps, grumbling under his breath about knees. Tomas watches from a bench, puppet in hand, eyes sharp and quiet. The work is monotonous. Rags dipped in icy water. Stone scrubbed until your fingers go red, then white, then red again. Brass polished until it reflects your exhaustion right back at you. The priest hums to himself occasionally. Latin prayers, echoing against empty walls. Nobody answers. No one ever does. By midday, the chapel floor shines. The brass glows and their backs ache. The priest mumbles a dismissal. They leave without speaking. Outside, snow continues falling gently, like it never stopped, like it never will. Back in the hut, the fire is down to its last ember. Tomas kneels by it, tries adding kindling. It doesn't catch at first, but he keeps trying. Anwin watches him from the corner. Eventually, the flame returns. Dinner is the last of the oats boiled with what remains of a dried onion. It tastes like effort. They eat slowly, elbows bumping. Tomas finishes first, then wraps the puppet in cloth and sets it beside the fire. Ella notices that he finally smiles, just a little, and for the first time in days, it feels like they're gaining something, not just losing less. The next morning doesn't arrive with dread. It arrives with sound, soft, unexpected, and very much alive. Tomas is humming, not singing. He's not that bold yet, but humming. Low and rhythmic, the kind of half-tune you hum without realizing, a sound born from warmth and routine, from knowing where you are, from knowing you're safe. He crouches near the hearth, feeding thin twigs into the base of the fire, coaxing the sleepy coals like a careful whisperer. The fire obliges, first smoke, then spark, then a glow that stretches its arms toward the ceiling like it just woke up too. Ella stirs under her blanket, blinking groggily toward the source of sound. Her brain needs a few extra seconds to register it's real. Milo sits up, hair flattened to one side like someone ironed his head during the night. Is he humming? He mutters, pointing vaguely. Anwin, already awake and stitching something with precise fingers, doesn't even look up. He is. Don't ruin it. Milo shrugs and crawls toward the warmth like a sleep-deprived sloth. Ella watches Tomas for another moment. There's no expression on his face, just focus. Fire building. Humming. Breathing. He looks like a child again. Not a grief-shadowed shadow of one. And somehow that changes the air. They eat breakfast the same as always, the eternal pottage, warm but uninspired, the kind of food you consume without chewing just to keep your stomach from collapsing in on itself. Tomas eats quickly. He doesn't hum while eating. He respects the ritual. After they clean the bowls with scrap cloth and scrape up the last of the crumbs, a knock comes, late morning, gentle but clear. Ella opens the door to find the baker standing there, not the apprentice, not her son, the baker herself. She's dusted with flour, as always, and her cheeks are red from wind and heat. She carries the scent of fresh loaves and long hours, and speaks without preamble. Cart paths blocked again need hands for deliveries. Ella doesn't hesitate. Will come. Anwin is already standing, cloak in hand. Milo looks at his empty bowl, sighs, and mutters something inaudible, but he stands. Then Tomas rises too, eyes wide with expectation. Ella looks down at him, pauses. He hasn't spoken much since arriving, but she sees the fire in his eyes now. The kind that asks, let me do something, let me matter. She nods. Wrap up warm. They head into the village behind the baker, bundled against the wind. The air has teeth again, not sharp ones, but that dull, persistent gnawing that reminds you winter isn't done being smug. Each of them carries something. Milo and Onwin take the heavier sacks, round loaves and rolls. Ella balances a basket on her hip filled with day-old rye. Tomas carries the lightest one, 4 small parcels tied in twine, but his grip is serious, like he's transporting treasure. The route winds through the village, past crooked chimneys and shuttered windows. They stop at door after door. Old Marin, who lives alone with 2 hens and a prayer. The cobbler's widow, who always offers a weak smile and never asks for change. The tanner's wife, pale but smiling, her newborn wrapped in wool beside the hearth. Every house receives bread, and a moment of warmth, a nod, a smile, a soft word. Even the priest's cousin accepts her share with a "thank the Lord," and a raised eyebrow at the presence of 4 children instead of 1 apprentice. At one stop, a girl answers the door, same age as Tomas, maybe younger. She wears a red cap and grins when she sees the bread. Tomas freezes. Ella watches him stammer silently, holds out the parcel. The girl giggles. He practically teleports away. Milo notices. "You okay, lover boy?" Tomas scowls. Ella coughs to hide a laugh. The path finishes near the edge of the woods, where the old hunter lives with a leg that doesn't work and a tongue that works too much. He receives the bread with a grunt that might be gratitude and slams the door before anyone can respond. They trudge back to the bakery just before noon. The baker meets them outside with a bundle wrapped in cloth, still warm. "Payment," she says. "Sweet bread, 4 pieces. No fighting." Onwin thanks her. Milo accepts it like a knight receiving a sword. They march home, clutching the prize like it might disappear if they blink. Inside, the fire's still alive, barely. Tomas immediately kneels to feed it. A few sticks, a whisper of breath, a spark. It lives again. Ella unwraps the bundle. 4 sweet rolls, dense, golden, glazed with something sticky. The smell alone feels sinful. They each take one. Ella bites. Honey, maybe cinnamon, maybe magic. She chews slowly, eyes closed. Milo eats his in 3 bites, immediately regrets it. Tomas stares at his for a moment, then nibbles the edge, eyes wide. Onwin saves half of hers and wraps it carefully in cloth. They sit in silence, chewing, glowing, not from the fire, but from being full, from being useful, from being remembered. Outside, snow falls again. Inside, Tomas hums. And this time, Milo joins in. Badly. But that's not the point. The next day begins with something dangerous. Hope, not loud, not glowing, just a whisper under the skin. It starts when the wind doesn't scream through the shutters, when the fire somehow hasn't died entirely overnight, when Tomas wakes up without coughing and Milo doesn't immediately complain. Ella notices it first. This strange quiet that isn't empty, it's patient. Outside, the snow has paused, not melted, just paused. A truce. She wraps herself in her cloak, crosses the room in stiff steps, and checks the fire. It greets her like an old friend who forgot your birthday but brought tea. Still alive. Barely. She feeds it, stirs the pottage pot, checks the water bucket. Still liquid. That's new. Anwin wakes next, then Tomas, then finally Milo, blinking like someone offended by light. "Why is it not freezing?" he mumbles. Anwin peers at the shutter slit. "Because today's pretending to be merciful. Don't jinx it." They eat breakfast in what can only be described as cautious optimism. The pottage isn't worse than usual. The bread crust isn't frozen. Milo only knocks over 1 cup. Tomas laughs, actually laughs, and nobody knows what to do with that. The knock comes not long after. Ella opens the door, expecting a new task, another request, some chore wrapped in polite urgency. But it's just a villager. No title, no assignment, just a neighbor, holding a bundle. "Extra kindling," he says. Heard the boy was good with fire. He nods at Tomas, then at the bundle, then walks off. No explanation, no expectation. Ella takes the bundle inside, sets it by the hearth. It's not much, twigs, a few solid branches, bits of pine bark, but it feels like a feast. They stare at it for a second. Then Tomas grins. Anwin smirks. Milo claps sarcastically. Ella laughs. It echoes. Later that morning, another visitor. This time, the smith's apprentice, red-faced, holding a small box. "Master's thanks," he says gruffly, "for the help. It's not much." Inside the box, nails. Real ones, iron, sharp, useful. Milo whistles. Anwen mutters, better than bread. And it is, because nails mean repairs. Repairs mean walls. Walls mean safety. Ella wraps the box in cloth and tucks it under the bed. By midday, the fire is strong. The smell of something other than just pottage, thanks to Anwen's dried herb stash, floats through the room. The hut feels warmer, not just in temperature, in mood, in color. Even the straw mattress doesn't creak as bitterly. They don't receive more visitors, but that's fine. Enough kindness can last a while. They spend the afternoon sorting the wood pile. Tomas takes charge, organizing sticks by length like a miniature architect. Milo builds a tower of bark, then knocks it down. Anwen sharpens a knife using a stone that's nearly worn smooth. Ella watches them and thinks, we're still here, and we're not just surviving anymore. We're shaping the cold into something bearable. Dinner comes with ceremony now, not because the food is better, but because they've made it feel earned. 4 bowls, 4 spoons, 1 fire, laughter, small but real. After the bowls are scraped clean and stacked, they sit close to the hearth, feet tucked in, shoulders touching. Milo tells a story about a talking goat. Anwen critiques the plot. Tomas insists he saw a talking crow once, and they all pretend to believe him. Ella leans back. The shadows dance on the wall. The snow has begun again outside, but this time it sounds manageable, like background noise, not a threat. She closes her eyes. Tomorrow will bring more cold, more work, more aching fingers. But tonight they are full, they are warm, and in a world that rarely gives you both, that is something close to a miracle. Morning doesn't begin with frostbite, which is already suspicious. No wind battering the shutters, no sound of something somewhere cracking under a new layer of snow, just stillness and something else, a smell. Ella's nose twitches before her eyes even open. It's faint at first, like a ghost drifting past the window, then stronger, sharp, warm, slightly burnt, sweet. She sits up, blinking. Wait, does anyone smell apples? Milo groans from under his cloak. Don't play with my heart like that. Anwen is already sitting up, sniffing the air with the trained suspicion of someone who's been disappointed too many times. That's mash, she says. Apple mash. The baker's boiling cider pulp again. Ella's stomach answers for her, a long, theatrical growl. Milo sits up dramatically. That's illegal. You can't just scent the air with joy and not share. Tomas, already awakened by the fire, perks up. Do you think she has extra? No one ever has extra, Anwen says flatly. But no one suggests staying in. The wind is low. The sky is an almost color, something approaching blue. And the smell of sweet apple mash is already pulling them like a string tied to the ribs. They dress fast, layer after layer. Boots, cloaks, scarves that have tasted too many winters. Milo forgets a glove, grabs a sock instead. No one questions it. The streets are wet with half-melted snow, the kind that pretends to be friendly until you slip. Children shout from across rooftops. A dog trots by with a boot in its mouth. Normal chaos. But that smell, that glorious, sharp, sticky smell, is what carries them forward. As they near the bakery, it hits full force. Apple skins, burnt sugar, boiled spice. Even the walls of the house seem to be exhaling it. The windows are fogged, the chimney puffing like it's telling a story. They stop just short of the door. Milo peers through a crack in the shutters, then gasps. There's a pot. It's huge. Tomas clutches his cloak dramatically. Do you think she'll share? Not unless the village becomes a festival, or the pot explodes and we get hit with shrapnel. I'll take that risk. Then the door creaks, and the baker herself stands there, arms crossed, bowl in hand. She stares at them. Not unkindly, just knowingly, like she's been through this exact scene 100 times. Too much mash this batch, she says. Burn the bottom, can't sell it. The 4 of them freeze. She holds out the bowl. Steam curls from the top like a slow spell. If you want it, take it. Or I'll toss it to the pigs. They won't thank me either. Tomas steps forward like he's about to touch a sacred relic. He accepts the bowl with both hands. Thank you, he breathes. The baker nods once. then closes the door with the quiet finality of someone who knows she's done a good deed and doesn't want to talk about it. Back at the hut, the bowl sits in the middle of the floor like treasure. It's hot, sticky, a little charred around the edges, but the smell, dear gods, the smell is enough to baptize your soul. No one uses a spoon. They dive in with fingers, tearing off clumps of apple mash, blowing on them, then chewing in stunned reverence. It's sweet and tart and sharp and warm and actual food. Not fuel, not filler. Food. Anwen closes her eyes on the first bite. Ella stares at the ceiling like she's about to write a poem. Milo just makes a noise not permitted in church. Even Tomas, quiet little Tomas, lets out a giggle mid-bite. It's gone too soon. Every trace scraped from the bowl, even the slightly burnt bits. Milo licks his fingers. I would marry that woman for more mash. Please don't, Anwen replies. Afterward, they sit around the fire and lie full in a way they haven't been in weeks, not just full of food, but of something better, of story, of kindness, of the kind of luck you don't expect in February. Ella sighs, then stretches. Roof's leaking again, she says. Milo stares at the ceiling. That drip's aiming for me. It's personal, Tomas agrees, so they fix it. They drag out the rags, the ladder, Anwen climbs. Tomas holds it. Milo stands beneath in case she falls, which is maybe noble and definitely foolish. Ella hands up scraps of cloth, wedges, patches. They argue about which way water runs. Eventually the drip stops, mostly. Victory, again. They clean the floor, restack the woodpile. Anwen sharpens the sewing needle. Tomas draws on the wall with charcoal, tiny trees and stars and stick figures. No one stops him. As night arrives, the wind returns, but gentler. The fire's burning steady. Dinner's just hot water and dried herbs. No pottage, no complaints. They sit close, talk less, listen more. When Tomas hums again, no one mocks him. Even Milo joins in, terribly, but happily. And outside, winter paces the village, waiting. But tonight, it waits alone. Morning doesn't arrive. It creeps, like it's ashamed of being here. The sky stays the color of old cloth. The light, if you can call it that, seeps through the shutters like soup through a cracked bowl. Weak, uncertain, and somehow still cold. Ella opens one eye. Her breath fogs the air in front of her mouth. She does the math. Fire's out, toes are numb. Someone took more than their fair share of the blanket. She sits up, scans the room. Tomas is curled at her side like a question mark. Milo is practically horizontal across the straw bed, mouth open, one arm draped dramatically over his face. Anwen is already up, of course. She's crouched by the hearth, feeding dry moss to a whispering ember like a priest tending the last candle in a crumbling chapel. Ella joins her wordlessly, passing over a few twigs. They work in tandem. Breathe, fan, feed, whisper. It catches, a hiss, a crackle, a pulse of life. Milo groans. Why are you making noise? Because I want to live, Anwen says. Unreasonable. Tomas stirs, yawns so wide he nearly dislocates something, then smiles as the fire flares. It's barely sunrise, but there's already a knock. Ella blinks. Who knocks this early? Anwen stands, wipes her hands on her skirt, and answers the door. It's the steward. He's not smiling. That's never a good sign. Pig broke loose, he says, short and sharp. Old so, headed into the woods. Anwen frowns. Why us? She knows you, and you're fast. Also expendable, Milo mutters. They gear up quickly. Extra cloaks, mittens, rope, a crust of bread each. The steward gives them direction. West path, past the willow, into the tree line. Bring her back alive, he says, or don't bother coming back. Charming. The snow is thin today, but deceptive. Every step is a question, every branch a trap. Tomas slips twice in the first 5 minutes, then figures out how to walk like a thief, quiet, low to the ground, suspicious of everything. Ella leads, Milo grumbles, Anwen hums, off-key and grim. They spot the pig near a fallen tree. Huge, black as soot, covered in bramble and defiance. She sees them, snorts, then bolts. Of course, Milo sighs, because life is just one big chase sequence. They run, not fast, just long, through branches that whip and snap, over roots that trip and laugh. Tomas stumbles, catches himself. Ella flanks the pig left. Anwin angles Rilo. Milo trips, then lands on the pig, which stops her, sort of, long enough for Anwin to lasso her back leg with a length of rope. She squeals, he squeals, everyone panics. Ella grabs another rope, loops it around the pig's neck. Thomas ties it to a tree, then another, then another. The pig stops, defeated by knots and sheer stubbornness. They collapse nearby, panting. Steam rises from their shoulders. Milo groans. I will never eat bacon again. Liar, Anwin says. He grins. She's not wrong. Oh. They rest a while, then begin the long drag back. The pig protests at first, then sulks. By the time they reach the village, the steward is waiting with a smirk. No one died, he says. Impressive. Ella hands him the rope, eyes narrowed. He nods, tosses them each a scrap of dried meat. Payment. Not much, but it's food, and food is everything. Back at the hut, they thaw. The fire's strong now. Thomas helps boil water for tea. Anwin rubs a bruise on her arm. Milo lays on the floor and moans dramatically until Ella throws a glove at him. They eat the dried meat slowly, chew, swallow, breathe. A pig was caught, a chore survived, a day won, and somehow that's enough. It begins, as these things often do, with knocking. Not the polite kind. Not the I baked you something kind. This is panic knocking. Short, sharp, and fast enough to wake the walls. Ella is halfway through pulling on her second boot when she opens the door. The weaver's apprentice is standing there, red-faced and soaked from knee to collar. Snow clings to his shoulders like it's trying to ride him into battle. Roof's down, he gasps. The dye shed. It caved in last night. There's water everywhere. Ella's brain is still waking up. Water? Like liquid water? He nods. And cloth. Dozens of bolts, all soaking. She's furious and cold. Furious and cold. Behind her, Anwen is already reaching for her gloves. Milo, still horizontal in a pile of cloak and sarcasm, mumbles, "We're not even weavers." "You're warm-bodied and poor," Anwen replies. "That's qualification enough." They head out into a morning that smells like regret and frozen leaves. The snow isn't falling heavy, but it's wet. Heavy. The kind that soaks your socks and your hopes equally. The weaver's shop squats at the end of the lane like a wounded animal. Smoke curls from its chimney, but it's not enough to lie about what's going on inside. The dye shed sits behind the main building, half swallowed by snow and chaos. One corner of the roof is folded inward like a pastry someone stepped on. The other half is cracked, sagging, wheezing under its own weight. Inside it's worse, soaked cloth everywhere. Bolts of linen, wool, cotton, all dyed beautiful colors yesterday, now bleeding into one another in a sad soup of blue, red, purple, and resignation. The weaver is there, hands on hips, eyes like knives. She doesn't scream, she doesn't plead. She simply points at the disaster, and then at the mop, and then she leaves. That's worse somehow. No directions, no plan, just 4 cold bodies and a problem the size of a barn. They get to work. Ella starts with the roof debris, dragging broken beams and heavy thatch to the side. Anwen joins her with practiced grace, tying her hair back like she's about to duel the weather itself. Milo takes the mop with all the enthusiasm of a man being drafted into battle. Tomas finds a pile of soaked blue cloth and immediately begins wringing it out with all the determination his little arms can muster. Water sloshes, wood groans, fabric sticks to everything. The dye gets on their gloves, their boots, their cheeks. Milo looks like someone tried to drown him in wine. Anwen somehow stays dry from the knees up, a miracle. Ella keeps slipping on patches of icy dye. Tomas says nothing, but rings with the solemnity of a monk. It takes hours. Time bends in that freezing shed, stretching out like bad thread. The wind whistles through the broken beams, adding insult to injury. By midday, their hands are red, their sleeves stiff, and their backs screaming. But there's progress. The water is mostly gone, the cloth is mostly stacked. The disaster is now contained. The weaver returns, surveys their work, says nothing, then disappears again. Moments later, she reemerges with 4 tin mugs, hot water, not tea, not broth, but steaming water. It might as well be gold. They huddle in the corner of the room, hands wrapped around the mugs like they're catching falling stars. Milo sniffs his. It tastes like nothing. Anwen nods. Exactly. No onion, no shoe leather, no surprised root. It's incredible. They sip and they survive. Back at the hut, they peel off wet layers and hang everything by the fire. The air smells like steam, smoke, and dye. Milo lies on the floor like a flattened coat. Tomas, still faintly purple-handed, builds the fire higher with a kind of quiet pride. Ella watches it catch. She's tired, sore, possibly bruised in places that don't deserve it. But something about the heat, the clean floor, and the fact no one is yelling feels like a win. Anwen takes out the mending basket and resumes sewing a sock that's mostly whole at this point. Milo pokes at the fire with a stick and tries to toast the last of the bread. Tomas stares at his hands. Do the colors come out? Eventually, Ella says, or your skin just changes forever. He seems fine with either. Dinner is pottage again, but tonight, they mix in a pinch of leftover herbs from the dye shed, rosemary, maybe, or sage. It changes everything. Milo declares it a feast. Anwen does not correct him. After they eat, they sit quietly. The fire throws golden light on the walls. The shadows dance again, longer this time. Tomas leans back, eyes closed, humming something that sounds suspiciously like the rhythm of mopping. Ella leans her head on her hand. I think today might have been okay. Milo groans. Don't say it. You'll summon something worse. But nothing knocks, nothing howls, nothing falls, just the crackle of fire, the faint scent of rosemary smoke, and 4 tired people who earn their rest. Some days feel like survival, others feel like maintenance. And then every once in a while, you wake up to a day that demands justice for your socks. It begins with a yelp. Not a dangerous yelp, more of a betrayed yelp. Milo hops across the floor, holding one foot in his hand and wearing a face like someone just insulted his ancestry. There is a hole in this sock, he announces to no one and everyone, and it is personal. Ella, halfway through tying her hair back, glances down. You mean the hole that's been there for 4 days? This hole, Milo declares, has evolved. He holds it up dramatically. The toe area is gone, just gone. Tomas looks over from the corner where he's feeding the fire with quiet precision. That's not a sock, that's a wristband with delusions of grandeur. Anwen looks up from sharpening a needle and sighs. That's it, we're doing repairs, Milo gasps. On a weekday? There are no weekdays in winter, Anwen replies, only degrees of freezing. She pulls down the mending basket like a commander unrolling a battle map. It spills open, tangles of thread, scraps of cloth, dull scissors, and a sock that may or may not have mold. Ella groans but sits beside her. Tomas joins, wide-eyed, clearly fascinated by the sacred chaos of threadwork. Milo flops onto the floor and mutters something about being targeted. The fire crackles. They begin. Anwen takes the worst of it. Her hands move with the focus of someone stitching dignity back into tired wool. She works fast, looping, patching, biting off thread with the practiced efficiency of someone who doesn't have time for tears. Ella takes on the medium cursed garments. Socks with honest intentions, but poor execution. She hums under her breath, which somehow makes the job feel less miserable. Tomas becomes the official sorter. This one still counts as clothing, he says, holding up a sock with 3 toes worth of material left. He finds one mitten that looks like it fought a bear and lost. Milo takes the needle Anwen gives him and stabs it directly into his thumb. Okay, he says, I'm moral support. You're barely moral, Anwen says without looking up. By mid-morning, the pile of wounded garments seems possible. They've stacked patched socks in one basket, gloves in another, things that might be hats in a third. Milo takes a break to sketch faces on the socks using charcoal. Tomas helps. One of them ends up looking vaguely like the steward. Everyone pretends not to notice. Lunch is a scrap of bread each. They toast it near the fire and pretend it's a feast. Milo insists on making a plating presentation, which is really just arranging crumbs in a circle. Art, he says. Anwin threatens to eat his piece if he doesn't stop talking. They eat in silence for a few minutes, except for chewing and the fire whispering about dry wood. Afterward, they go back to work. The mood shifts. There's rhythm now. Sew, knot, snip, pass, fold. Even Milo manages to patch a sleeve without setting anything on fire. Tomas sews a button back onto his cloak and beams like he's rebuilt a cathedral. Ella glances over at the window. The sky is doing that late winter gray again, soft, unbothered, endless, but inside the hut it's bright, in its own stubborn way. Anwin finishes a glove and tosses it onto the dung pile. We're going to survive this storm wearing matching socks. A dangerous level of optimism, Milo replies. Tomas stands up, proudly displaying his finished repairs. One sock, one sleeve, one fingerless mitten that now has a patch shaped like a star. He twirls once for effect. Your fashion is a war crime, Anwin says gently, but she smiles. Later, they gather all the mystery cloths. Bits too small to mend, but too big to throw out. They sew them into one lumpy, multicolored patch blanket. It is hideous, but also warm. They drape it over the bedrolls like a trophy. Dinner is pottage, again, but they stir in a sliver of dried herb from yesterday, just enough to pretend. As they eat, Milo puts on 2 sock puppets and reenacts the day. Sock Milo complains. Sock Anwin threatens violence. Sock Tomas narrates dramatically, complete with overacting. Even Anwin chuckles. Ella leans against the wall, bowl in hand, and watches the flames. They're all here, wearing socks that mostly work, wrapped in blankets made of scraps and spite, and somehow it feels like home. Not forever, but for tonight, that's enough. It starts with the sound of slush. Not rain, not snow, slush. That strange, insulting in-between noise, like water trying to remember how to be winter. Ella wakes to it sliding off the roof in lazy, wet globs. It drips past the shutters, gurgles through the cracks, smells like old wood and new problems. She sits up slowly, stretches, and immediately regrets it. Her back sounds like someone stepping on thin ice. Milo is already awake, staring at the ceiling like it's personally responsible for this indignity. Is that slush? Tomas perks up from his corner near the hearth. It's melting. Anwin doesn't look up from sharpening a stick. It's lying. They rise one by one, layering their clothes like armor, scarves, cloaks, socks that are only pretending to be dry. When Ella opens the door, the truth is waiting. Mud. Thick, brown, unapologetic mud. Where yesterday there was snow, today there is soup. The kind no one wants to eat. Tomas peers out from behind her shoulder. It's alive. Milo leans on the door frame. It wants blood. Ella sighs. It wants boots. Milo lifts one foot and reveals that his boot is already hosting a colony of mud. I told you it was hungry. Anwin pulls her hood up. We're checking the traps today. No more putting it off. But the mud, it's not an enemy, she says. It's a condition. So they set out. It's only a mile to the edge of the woods, but it feels like a trial. Every step is uncertain. Each footprint is a commitment. The path is less a trail and more a suggestion. Anwin walks ahead, somehow gliding over the mess like she's made a secret deal with gravity. Ella follows, boot deep in regret. Tomas hops from patch to patch like an overconfident rabbit. Milo sinks, twice. By the time they reach the trees, they're all at least one limb heavier with wet soil. Trap 1 empty. Trap 2 chewed through. Trap 3, different. There's movement. A rabbit, small, wet, alive, but barely. Its ears twitch, legs tucked beneath it. The trap didn't injure it, just trapped it. Tomas crouches instantly. His hands move slow, gentle, the way some people talk to fire. It's breathing fast, he says. Anwin kneels beside him. Shock, cold. It might not make it. Ella watches him wrap it in his scarf, soft wool against shivering fur. Milo leans in, curious. We keeping it? Anwin opens her mouth to say no, probably, but doesn't. Tomas is already standing, cradling the rabbit. It's small, he says. Ella shrugs. So are we. The walk back is slower, wetter. The sky spits at them, something between drizzle and insult. At one point, Milo slips and lands directly in a puddle. He lies there for a beat, face up, staring at the sky. The ground accepts me, he says. No one offers to help. Eventually, he rolls to his feet like a reborn swamp creature. They arrive home soaked, muddy, slightly victorious. Tomas gently places the rabbit on a folded cloth near the fire. It doesn't move, just blinks. Anwen hands him a shallow bowl, warm water, crumbs of bread. It sniffs, twitches, nibbles, a small miracle. They sit around it, watching, waiting, like it's about to speak. Dinner is late, the fire needs stoking, their clothes need wringing, but no one rushes. The rabbit breathes slow now, steady. Milo names it Captain. Anwen vetoes it. Ella suggests Ash. Tomas doesn't decide. He just smiles. They eat quietly. Bread, broth, silence. Afterward, Tomas hums again. A tune that has no beginning, no real melody, just warmth. The rabbit dozes. Milo draws it in the ash with a stick. Big ears, big eyes, tiny feet. Anwen watches him, then surprises everyone by correcting the proportions. They all look at her. She shrugs. I used to have one. The fire snaps. Outside, the mud shifts. Inside, the floor is dry, the blanket's warm. And for one night, the only thing that needs saving is already safe. The rabbit is still alive. That's the headline of the morning. The moment that sets the tone. The kind of news that doesn't ask for applause, just acknowledgement. Tomas is the first to see it. He wakes early as usual, crawling out from under his blanket while the others still cling to sleep like it's warmth. The fire is a soft glow, not gone yet, but barely holding. He adds wood, coaxes the flame, then turns to the cloth by the hearth where their guest, the rabbit, was left last night. It's still there, still breathing, still small, still damp around the ears, but unmistakably alive. Its eyes are open. Tomas gasps, not loud, just awed. He kneels quietly, offers a crumb of bread from his pocket. The rabbit sniffs, doesn't eat, but doesn't flinch either. Tomas smiles like he's just been entrusted with a secret. When Ella stirs next, the first words she hears are, "It made it through the night." She blinks at him. "The rabbit," he adds, "it's still with us." Ella sits up slowly, stretching out her legs. "So it didn't explode in its sleep. That's comforting." "It's a survivor," Milo groans from under his blanket. "Like us, except with less sarcasm." Anwen emerges last, muttering something about sore knees and cursed dreams. She sees the rabbit, nods once, then says, "Good, it can pay rent in spring." They start the day slow. The kind of slow earned after a week of chasing pigs, dodging roof collapses, and surviving on 3 ingredients and sarcasm. Ella sweeps the floor with the old brush. It doesn't do much, but it shifts the dirt around in a satisfying way. Milo digs through the storage baskets and finds a pair of mismatched gloves. He claims they're a fashion statement. Anwen sharpens the knife, then the needle, then the knife again. She likes things ready. Tomas builds a small perch out of 2 bits of firewood and places it near the rabbit. Adds some hay, a leaf, a tiny pine cone, declares it the throne. By midday, they're all still inside. It's the first time in weeks they haven't had to run, fix, chase, or beg. Outside, the sky is gray but gentle. The snow has paused. The mud still lurks, but no one has to wade through it today. Lunch is bread with a smear of fat and a tiny sprinkle of salt. They eat it slowly, as if pretending it's more. After, they sit around the hearth, legs stretched out, backs against the walls. The rabbit finally nibbles at the bread Tomas offered earlier. He claps silently. Milo draws a face on the clay pot near the fire and names it Gerald. Gerald is the rabbit's advisor, apparently. Anwen says nothing. But later, Ella catches her placing a small strip of cloth next to the rabbit's corner like a makeshift curtain. In the afternoon, they try to fix the back window shutter. It's been loose for days. Every windstorm, it bangs, loud, angry, like a ghost demanding attention. With rope nails and a stick that used to be a broom, they patch it. It still creaks, but now it creaks politely. That's progress. Tomas practices tying knots. Milo teaches him the slip scream and the ankle snare, both useless, both entertaining. Ella finds an old button in the dirt and sews it back onto Milo's cloak. He pretends it gives him magical powers. Anwen rolls her eyes so hard the hut tilts. As night creeps in, they prepare dinner, broth with tiny bits of onion skin and something that might be beetroot. It's bitter, but warm. They eat by firelight. Tomas feeds the rabbit a corner of his crust. It takes it gently, like it knows. Milo reintroduces his sock puppet show, featuring the rabbit now as a prince in exile. Ella laughs until she snorts. Anwin pretends not to enjoy it. Later, Tomas sits beside the fire, humming again, soft, wordless. It weaves between the crackle of logs and the shifting of blankets. Ella leans her head back, eyes closed. Milo stretches out, arms behind his head, smiling like he's just tricked winter itself. Anwin sharpens the knife again, quiet, focused. Outside, the world is still, cold, but still. Inside, there's warmth. A rabbit, 4 people who didn't ask to be together, but are. And for once, no disasters, no screams, no new holes. Just this, a fire, a song without words, and a rabbit who made it through the night. The rabbit has a name now, not officially. No one sat down and voted. But it happened the way names do, accidentally, quietly, and with just enough certainty that no one argues. Tomas called it Ash this morning. Not even with ceremony, just looked over, smiled and said, "Morning, Ash." No one blinked, no one objected. So now the rabbit is Ash. Ash the survivor. Ash the fire warmed. Ash who still hasn't bitten anyone, which is more than can be said for Milo. Speaking of which, Milo is attempting breakfast. He has decided unilaterally that they will not eat bread today. "We must innovate," he declares, wielding a pot like a weapon. "What are you making?" Ella asks, already concerned. "A porridge." "Of what?" He blinks. Crushed oats, bits of root, maybe some dried berry skins, possibly sawdust, but only the good kind." Anwin gives him a look so sharp it could whittle firewood. But she lets him continue. They watch as he stirs his masterpiece with the solemnity of a priest at a cursed altar. The smell is not horrible, which is surprising. When it's done, he doles it out like treasure. Each person gets a scoop in a chipped wooden bowl. Tomas stirs his politely. Ella sniffs hers twice. Anwin taps the surface with her spoon like she's testing for poison. Milo takes the first bite, chews, swallows, shrugs. It's food. They eat it. No one dies. No one cries. Ash gets a flake too and twitches his nose like he's reviewing it for a publication. After breakfast, the chore list appears. Not on paper. Paper is too valuable. But in Anwin's voice, which is just as terrifying. Wood pile needs restacking. Roof corner near the door is leaking again. And someone, she looks at Milo, has been leaving boots in front of the fire. That stops today. Milo salutes with his spoon. "Yes, General Grump." She doesn't smile, but she doesn't throw the spoon either. Progress. The woodpile is first. It's collapsed overnight, not disastrously, just enough to suggest the logs had a meeting and voted to lie down. Tomas and Ella handle it. They stack, restack, swear gently when a log rolls away like it has a vendetta. Inside, Milo fixes the boot situation by creating a boot zone out of an old basket and a flat rock. He names it the Shoe Tribunal. Anwin doesn't respond, but later she uses it, which is basically affection. By noon, the roof is next. Ella climbs up, carefully. The wind is playful, not cruel, but just annoying enough to feel like it's testing her balance. She patches the gap with a bit of cloth, a handful of pine resin, and pure stubbornness. When she climbs down, Tomas claps. Milo offers her a hero's welcome in the form of half a biscuit he found under a cushion. She declines. He eats it anyway. The afternoon is quieter. The chores are done. No disasters arrive, no strangers knock. Anwin sits by the fire, mending a tear in her sleeve. Tomas braids old thread into a necklace for Ash. It's lopsided, but Ash wears it, or at least doesn't immediately try to eat it. Ella leans against the doorframe, watching the sky shift. Gray again, always gray. But somehow it feels less heavy today. She hears Milo humming, some tune from nowhere. Soft, stupid, comforting. They eat early again, because the light is going fast. Dinner is bread, a sliver of fat, and a few dried turnip shavings that Ella found in a jar labeled maybe. No one complains. Afterward, Milo tells a story. One he makes up on the spot. It involves a dragon, a missing sock, and a queen who rules using only sarcasm. Anwin is suspiciously quiet during that part. Tomas adds details. The dragon wears a hat. Ella suggests the sock is magic. Milo insists it's cursed. Ash falls asleep near the fire mid-story, curled in his corner like he owns the place. They watch him breathe, steady, peaceful, warm. Later, as they prepare for bed, Tomas whispers to Ella, "Do you think we're doing okay?" She thinks for a moment, then nods. "I think we're still here." He smiles. That's enough. They settle in, the fire hums. Ash twitches once in his sleep, and the night, quiet, gray, kind, holds them all gently like it's trying not to wake them. They wake to wind, not snow, not sleet, just wind. Furious and theatrical, like winter suddenly remembered it had an appointment with destruction and is now running late. The hut creaks, groans, the fire guttered low during the night, and the chill slides in like a thief with good manners. Ella blinks awake, listens. The roof holds. The shutters rattle but don't fly off. Milo is already up, sitting near the door, staring at the wall as if trying to win a staring contest with structural integrity. He says nothing, just lifts a finger and mouths, "It's loud." Anwen wakes next. Not startled, just alert. She checks the window, feels for drafts, then mutters, "Northwest, that's a stupid direction." Tomas peeks from beneath his blanket. "Does this mean we can't go outside?" "It means if we do," Ella says, "we'll be airborne." Milo looks intrigued. Like birds, like laundry. They stay in. The day bends around that decision. Breakfast is made slow. They scrape the pot for the last bits of dried grain, boil it with water, and stir until it reluctantly becomes something edible. Ash, ever the royalty, gets a separate portion. He eats with tiny dignity. Milo salutes him. "Your Majesty?" Ash sneezes. It feels like a royal decree. With no outdoor work possible, they turn inward. Anwen pulls out the clothing pile again, always something with a hole or tear or misplaced ambition. Ella helps her. Their hands move in rhythm. Needle, thread, tug, knot, snip. Tomas reads an old piece of parchment they found months ago. It's nothing important, just part of a ledger. But he reads it like it's a legend. Milo stares at the ceiling, then decides today is a story day. He sits up dramatically, clears his throat, and begins. Once, in a land of mud and toast, there lived a terribly handsome man with only 3 socks, all cursed. They listen, because there's nowhere else to go, because the wind has decided today is about waiting, and because sometimes stories are what keep the roof from feeling too low. Ash hops once, then curls into a ball on Tomas's lap. A quiet agreement. Hours pass. Lunch is just heated leftovers, warm enough to pretend. Milo adds a handful of dried herbs and claims it's stew. Anwen tells him if he adds any more flavor, she'll bury the pot with him in it. He doesn't. The wind howls louder by mid-afternoon. It lifts a tile, then another. They hear it. All of them freeze. Ella climbs onto the bench and pushes up into the loft. Peeks, sees it. A piece of thatch flapping like a wounded bird. She climbs onto the roof. Yes, again. This time the wind pulls at her, not violently, but insistently, like it's trying to carry her idea of safety somewhere else. She secures the flap, ties it down with rope and hope. Milo braces the door below, just in case. Tomas holds the ladder. Anwen stands beside the fire, arms crossed, ready to yell if needed. Nothing goes wrong. Ella climbs back in, wind tuzzled, mud-streaked, alive. Milo offers her a mug of warm water. Your prize, noble roof knight. She drinks it in 3 gulps. Doesn't speak, just nods. Evening settles hard. The wind hasn't given up, but they're used to it now. Ash climbs onto the hearthstone and stretches. He's not afraid, so they won't be either. Dinner is small, but warm and shared. After, they sit close. Milo reads a bit of something he wrote, bad poetry. Everyone pretends it's terrible, but they all smile. Tomas hums. Anwen fixes a tear in the side of his coat. Ella rests her head on her arm and watches the fire. It flickers wildly today, but it still burns. Outside, the wind rages. Inside, they breathe. Together. The wind doesn't stop. It just changes its mind. Sometime in the early morning, when even the fire is too tired to crackle, it softens, turns from howling to whispering, from furious to curious. Ella hears it first, a different rhythm. Still cold, still insistent, but not angry. She opens one eye. The rabbit is awake. Ash, sitting on Tomas's blanket, ears twitching like antennae, picking up news from the horizon. Tomas stirs beside him. Milo snores once, rolls over, and says something about soup. Anwen is already up, of course. She sits near the window, sharpening a stick to a point so fine it could cut the future. Wind's tired, she says. Ella nods, aren't we all? They rise slower today, not out of laziness but caution. It's the kind of morning where peace feels suspicious. Breakfast is minimal. A crust each, dipped in leftover broth. Tomas offers Ash a sliver. Ash sniffs, declines, demands apple. Milo says he's developing taste. We're doomed. Afterward, they step outside, tentatively. The world is still wet, still soggy in places, but the sky, God's bless it, is blue, or trying to be. Not summer blue, not even spring blue, but a soft, dusty blue with hints of not misery. Ella stares up like it's a miracle. Tomas spreads his arms. We lived. Anwen mutters, it's a trap. Milo immediately lies down on the first dryish patch of ground and says, if I die now, at least I die horizontal. They decide to walk. Not far. Just enough to stretch legs and lungs. Ash stays behind, sleeping in a sunbeam like he invented comfort. They head toward the western hill. It's not steep, but it's tall enough to pretend. The mud clings, but the wind has finally moved on. It feels like breathing in space again. Halfway up, Tomas finds a stick that looks like a sword and challenges Milo to a duel. Milo wins by throwing moss. Anwen finds a wild sprig of something green, tiny, tough, and stubborn. She pockets it. Ella walks behind them all, watching, listening, feeling. At the top, they sit, not to do anything, just to be. Below them, the village lies quiet. No smoke, no movement, but not ominous, just resting. Tomas lies back and closes his eyes. Do you think spring's coming? Milo says. Eventually. Anwen says it's always late, like nobility. Ella doesn't answer because spring is already here, not in blossoms, not in warmth, but in how she's breathing, easier, softer, hope in small doses. After a while, they head down, slowly. No one rushes. At the hut, Ash is still asleep, but upright, dignified. They make lunch, more broth, less sadness. Anwen adds a pinch of something from her pocket, green, sharp, fragrant. Milo gasps. Is this seasoning? It's ambition, she says. It's the best meal in weeks. Afterward, they clean, really clean, not survival clean. Corners, cracks, under the mat. Ella finds an old spoon and cries out like it's buried treasure. Tomas washes the cups twice. Milo invents a game involving balancing a potato on his head. He loses. Anwen writes something on the door with charcoal, a mark, not a word, not a warning, just a sign that they were here, that this mattered, that winter didn't win. Evening arrives slowly, like it's tiptoeing. They sit around the fire with full bellies and quiet hearts. Ash hops between them, pauses at each as if counting. At Milo, he stops longest. They stare at each other. Milo blinks, Ash sneezes, everyone laughs. And somehow it doesn't echo, it settles. The fire burns low, the sky outside turns velvet, no stars yet, just the hush before dreaming. Tomas dozes off mid-hum. Anwen folds one last blanket. Ella closes the shutters. Milo whispers, we did it, didn't we? No one answers. They don't need to. Morning comes quietly, the kind of quiet that doesn't press, just exists. Like the world knows you're tired and, for once, agrees to let you wake at your own pace. Ella stirs first, not from a bad dream, not from cold, but because the light is different. Not gray, not blue, but warm. Gold, almost. She blinks twice and sits up slowly. The rabbit Ash is still in his corner, snoring softly, one ear folded like a napkin at a fancy meal. Outside, the birds are back, not many, just enough to sound like punctuation marks on the wind. She nudges Tomas gently. Come see. He doesn't ask what, he just follows. They open the door together, and there it is. Spring. Still muddy, still stingy, but real. Patches of green push through old snow. The trees don't look dead anymore, just patient. The sky is wide and clean. Ella breathes it in. Tomas stretches his arms like he's trying to hug the horizon. Behind them, Milo groans awake. Why is it bright? Who turned on the sky? Anwen opens one eye. It's sun, idiot. I thought we banned that. They come outside one by one, blankets draped like robes, boots haphazard, eyes squinting. No one complains about cold, because for the first time in forever, it's not the first thing they feel. They sit on the ground just to sit, not to work, not to check traps, just to feel the dirt again. Milo lies on his back and declares, "This is a sacred patch of mud. No one touch it." Tomas immediately touches it. Anwin sharpens a stick for fun. Ella lies back and watches a cloud drift by. It looks like a ship, or a spoon, or maybe nothing. Doesn't matter. It's moving. They spend the morning outside. Ash explores cautiously, finds a bit of moss, stares at it like it owes him money. Tomas builds him a ramp out of twigs. Ash ignores it. Milo makes daisy chains out of weeds, wears them like royalty. Anwin finally laughs, not the tiny kind, the full one. Sharp and sudden like spring breaking through a wall. They freeze. She immediately glares. "Say nothing." "Too late," Ella says. "We're telling everyone." Milo raises a hand. "I'd like to thank the Academy." Lunch is warm water, thickened with flour, stirred into a paste of not quite disgusting. They call it pudding. They pretend it's dessert. They eat it in the sun. Ash tries to steal someone's portion. Tomas gives him his without hesitation. Milo protests. Anwin says, "Let him have it. He's our mascot." "He's our landlord now," Ella adds. "Fine," Milo groans, "but I draw the line at him getting my bed." Ash immediately hops into Milo's bedroll. "No loyalty," Milo mutters. They all laugh. The afternoon becomes soft, not lazy, earned. They take turns cleaning the hut, not because it's filthy, but because clean things feel hopeful. Anwin finds a splintered bowl and repairs it with pine glue. Tomas wipes every cup twice. Ella organizes the thread box. Milo rearranges the spoon pile into a defensive formation. Everything feels like a ritual, not for leaving, not yet, but for continuing, for growing. Later they walk, just a little, down the path, past the old tree with the swing that no one remembers building. They find wild garlic pushing through the earth. Tomas picks some, carries it like treasure. They pass the stream, still icy, still too cold for comfort, but louder now, livelier. Milo tosses a stone and cheers when it skips once. Anwin watches a bird, doesn't say which one, but watches. Ella touches the bark of a tree and swears she can feel something beneath it. Not magic, not history, just life. When they return, the sky is turning peach-colored. Ash waits by the door, tail twitching in greeting or judgment. Inside, the fire is still warm. Dinner is everything they have left. Bread, herbs, root vegetables, and the garlic. It's the best meal they've had. Not in quantity, but in meaning. They eat slowly, talk freely. No one mentions tomorrow, because tonight deserves the full spotlight. After, they sit by the fire, closer than usual. Ash curls up at their feet. Milo speaks first. Quiet, earnest, a rarity. This wasn't what I expected. No one asks what he did expect, because they know. Tomas says, "I didn't think we'd stay this long." Anwin nods, "I didn't think we'd stay alive." Ella stares at the flame, then softly, "But we did." No one says anything for a while. The fire crackles. Ash snores. Tomas leans on Anwin's shoulder. She doesn't shove him off. Milo lies down with his arms behind his head and one sock puppet on his hand. "Sir Toesworth bids you good night," he whispers. Ella smiles. "Good night, Toesworth." The light fades. But they don't rush to sleep, because there's nowhere else they'd rather be. Because there's no storm tonight, only the quiet promise of a season that might finally be kind, and 4 people who held on long enough to see it. And that's the end of this journey, for now. If you made it all the way here, wrapped in blankets, sipping your tea, maybe with a sleepy pet nearby, thank you. You've just survived one long winter with us, and frankly, I'm proud of both of us. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What was your favorite moment? Did Ash steal your heart? Was Milo's sock puppet a little too convincing? Leave a comment below, share where you're listening from, and what time it is over there. I always read every word. Well, unless Ash gets to them first, and if this cozy chaos brought a little warmth to your night, please consider subscribing to the channel. Not for me, do it for the hut. Do it for Ash. More stories are coming, More fires, more frost, more laughter. Until then, sleep well, dream weird, and may your soup never be too thin. Good night, friends. I'll see you in the next tale.